Go ahead and bring the Higher Ed Appropriations Committee to order. I'm going to ask, would Chairman Chokas, you lead us in a word of prayer as we begin? Your number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us bow our heads. Oh, Lord and Heavenly Father, thank you very much for this day. Thank you for our work together for the good of the people. And thank you for this committee. This committee is our future, and it has so many promising things that it does. Please give us discernment. Please give us wisdom. Please give us patience. In your Son, Jesus Christ's name, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chairman Chokas. I want to welcome everyone. Obviously, the members that are here, we've got Representative Dukes, present in the chamber, Chairman Chokas. Who am I missing else? There is here present, but I also want to welcome. We've got online with us Representative Jones, Leader Jody Lott. We've got Dean Calvin Smyrie that is online with us. And so I want to welcome them as we take our first just a hearing only as we start to look at the FY22 budget. So again, I appreciate everyone being here. And there was a little bit of an agenda here, but I want to move our order because I know one of our I guess a good friend, I want to let him go first. I know he's got a meeting to go, and Chancellor, would you and your staff, if you want to come ahead and come to the podium. Before the Chancellor begins, I want to personally, I want to thank you. I've known Steve for, and I'm going to call him Steve because he's a friend, but I remember one of the first times I met when I first began. He was at the University of Georgia, and I was over there. I'll never forget as we were looking at some things within the University of Georgia and our campus over there, how helpful he was. And as I've gotten to know him over the years, he's become a good friend. And if you look at the history of Steve, your service, not only to the higher education system in Georgia, the different roles you've played from the University of Georgia all the way to Chancellor, but even before that, I would dare label you one of those longtime public servants to Georgia, and one of the ones who are dedicated to Georgia, all of Georgians for the right reasons. And I know y'all are like me, probably sad to see him go, but he has decided to retire and probably enjoy life and enjoy some of the other things that family and the hobbies that I think we share some of those together. And I just personally want to say a big thank you and how much it's meant for us to have worked together and the honest conversations that we've had. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we didn't. But they were always honest conversations, and they were for the right reasons. And again, Chancellor Steve, my friend, thank you for your service to the state, and especially in your role to higher education in Georgia.
Do consider it a privilege to be able to serve the state the years that I have and in the roles that I've had. The wonderful part of a role like this and working for the state is the wonderful people you get to know and to meet and to work with. And then the members of the committee in the room, all three of you certainly are on that list, good friends, and we worked together many years. And that's, I've enjoyed the work. I'm one of the lucky ones. I've enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. Looking forward to the next step, but appreciate your remarks and appreciate being able to work with this committee through the years. And for those of you who are on Zoom, thank you all as well. And thank you for joining today. I'll just take a couple minutes and just, again, thank you for the opportunity to talk briefly about our FY22 budget request. We very much appreciate the support of the General Assembly through the years. This year on the 21 amended, we do not take it for granted. The university system is healthy, and it's healthy because of the support that this committee and the House and the Senate and the governor all give it, and we do appreciate that very, very much. As you know, because of the pandemic, last year, we didn't receive the enrollment funding, but the governor and you all supported it in the 21 amended, and the governor has recommended the enrollment funding in the 22 budget, and we certainly respectfully ask that you support that as we go forward. The formula is very important to our teaching program and student success all across the state. It helps us carry out our mission. And as you know, we did confront some revenue declines last year, just even outside of the state impact, refunds for housing and dining and other kinds of programs. And the total loss of those kinds of funds was over $300 million, which partially offset by Federal CARES Act money. So the formula funds are greatly appreciated and will definitely have a positive impact on our teaching program. Our goals remain the same. You've heard me talk about them. We want to be more affordable. We want to be more efficient. We want to graduate more students, and your investment in what we do makes a difference in that. We are making progress. The news is good. Since 2011, our enrollment has grown about 7%. But our degree production, the number of degrees awarded, has grown 29%, to almost 71,000 during that same period of time. So our rate of awarding degrees is growing 4 times faster than our enrollment. And we feel like that's progress and the result of your investment and the deliberate steps we've made in investment in supporting students. We do know one of the best ways to support students is to keep costs low. And as a result, we have not raised tuition 3 of the last 5 years and did not raise it this year. Our average annual tuition increase the last 5 years is 0.9%, less than 1%. We're proud of that. We've worked hard to maintain that. We're not able to do that, though, without the support of this committee and the General Assembly and the governor. So we do appreciate that. But as a result of those efforts, our combined efforts, students and families in Georgia do pay some of the lowest tuition and fees in the Southeast. We are 4th lowest among the 16 SREB states. Nationally, 36 states have higher average tuition and fees than the 4-year institutions in the university system. But we're also proud that we maintain quality. As you know, we have a number of programs and institutions ranked among the top among U.S. News and World Report. Every year, Georgia and Georgia Tech are in the top 15. We're one of only a handful of states that can say that. We've also made an effort on pioneering reducing the cost of textbooks through offering e-textbooks. And last spring alone, we saved students around $27 million on textbook costs as a result of that. We faced some challenges. We feel like we've overcome them with your help and support. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. And so I commend the 22 recommendation to you. And if I could, I'd ask Tracy Cook to go into some of the details, and I'll be here and be glad to answer any questions whenever you want, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chancellor. We appreciate it. And again, I want to say thank you, but thank you to all of the university, the USG, and all of our colleges in the state. We've faced a hard year, if you will, probably going on a little longer than a hard year as far as the COVID. I know all of the system and the faculty are dealing with this, just like all Georgians are, but just like all Georgians, we always rise up to the occasion to meet the challenges that we face as citizens of Georgia. And thank you and to all of the faculty at all of the institutions for what they've done to meet this challenge head on. I know we've made great headway, and we've been an example, I think, across the state of how to keep our students safe, but also when appropriate to return to classrooms as much as we can. And we know that's takes a lot of hard work. And I just want to say thank you to you and all of the institutions and the faculty across the state of Georgia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Good afternoon, Chairman Knight, Vice Chairman Gaines, and committee members. As Chancellor mentioned, I'm Tracy Cook, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the fiscal year 22 budget. So the recommendation for fiscal year 22 budget reflects a net increase for the University System of Georgia of $131.4 million for all of its institutions and its pass-through organizations. About half of the increase relates to changes that you approved in the fiscal year 21 amended budget and that now are being annualized into fiscal year 22 forward. I'll discuss each of the major items recommended in the fiscal year 22 budget. These changes are included in section 41. They begin on, and they go through from pages 58 through 61 of the track sheet. So the first three changes that I'll talk about are all common, and they're common across all programs of the University System of Georgia. So I'll use section 441.1 to talk about each of them, but unless it's your pleasure, I won't repeat them when they show up in the remaining programs. The first change is related to an increase in the employer share of the teacher's retirement rate, which increased from 19.06% of salary to 19.81% for fiscal year 22. Again, across all programs, this rate change results in a $7 million increase in state funds. For the next item is the elimination of funds for the payment to TRS, the Teachers Retirement System, for a subset of our optional retirement plan members that were originally TRS members. This reduction was approved in the fiscal year 21 amended budget as well, and totals $4.7 million across all programs. Again, just as a quick reminder, the actual legislation that required this payment to TRS from the University System Office was repealed through House Bill 292, so that payment is no longer required. The third and final agency-wide change relates to the reduction for employer share of health insurance for our employees and our retirees. Changes in the Board of Regents health plan have saved money and reduced costs to the state by decreasing employer premiums. We manage our plans by constantly reviewing our claims data, negotiating strong performance guarantees, and really being vigilant about managing our vendors. And so this represents a $1.1 million budget reduction across all of the programs, and it reflects these efforts. So again, those were the three high level. I won't repeat them again. So moving on to the top of page 60, which is our public libraries, line 4114.3 is an increase to the public library funding formula of $345,000. The library's formula provides over $32 million to support professional librarian salaries, materials, and system services for public libraries across the entire state. The formula is population driven, and the increase of $345,000 is due to the increase in the Georgia population. The rest of the unique changes to the university system's budget occur in the teaching program, which is towards the bottom of page 60 and starts at 41.18. Before I talk about the individual items, as a quick reminder, I just want to remind you that almost 90% of the funding that comes to the University System of Georgia comes to us through our funding formula. This formula is the basis, it forms the basis for our budget requests each and every year. The primary driver of this formula is enrollment, specifically the credit hours taken by our students. The amount of physical space on our campuses is also a driver in this formula. Line 41.18.2 is the governor's recommendation of $57 million for credit hour growth. These funds support increased costs associated with the growing number of students enrolled at our institutions. For the period that it's reflected in the formula, we saw an increase of 1.5% growth in our student population and the associated credit hours. That's what drove the request for fiscal year 22. 41.18.2 also includes the support for new academic square footage across our institutions or maintenance and operation funding. And this increase of 336,000 square feet generates approximately $1.9 million in state funds. And these funds are essential for our plant operations across our campuses. They provide for things such as utilities, custodial services, building maintenance, and other facility-related operating expenditures. We are grateful for the governor's recommendation and for your approval to provide the funding of the $70 million in the amended budget for the state funds earned through the formula for last year's enrollment growth. So line 41.18.4 is the same growth item and is here being added to the base budget for fiscal year 22 and forward. Line 41.18.5 is the final change to the university system's budget. This is an addition of $671,000 to restore funding to Savannah State University. This funding was removed from Savannah's budget approximately 20 years ago to cover the annual debt service payments on a state GO bond funded project. It was a housing project at Savannah State. This funding mechanism, which was known as the payback project, was used prior to the formation of the JHEFA, or the Georgia Higher Education Financing Authority. Now that the debt on this facility is paid off, we are seeking that the funds be restored back to Savannah State University's budget. And finally, in sections 41.23.2 and 41.23.3, these are changes for three agencies that are administratively attached to the Board of Regents. And it's my understanding that Georgia Military College and the other agencies will speak on behalf of those changes. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my comments. And again, I'd like to thank the General Assembly. I just have to echo the Chancellor as well as the Governor for the continued support of higher education.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions. Is that Chairman Martin, is that you, 61?
I don't know what number I am.
Try that.
I'm that number, whatever that number is. Thank you very much. Thank you both for coming in your presentation. I always ask questions. Dr. Wrigley, you'll know I don't mean this as an adversarial one, just an inquiry. So if the money's paid off, if the loans are paid off, what are they going to do with the $617,000?
You talking about the Savannah State?
Right, yeah.
project? They have a proposal on that. Yeah, I'll boot that to Tracy, but
Yeah, we don't have an official proposal, but we know it will go back into the state funds coffer for the teaching mission. And so these funds now become available to provide for more teaching, for advisement, more things in the towards the instructional mission.
Okay, so, but this is where I mean, to my detriment, I chase pennies. They were operating at the university. They get, if they have more students, they get additional monies because of the formula. If they have another project come in, they can come and ask for, or they don't ask us, since it's the Board of Regents, they would ask the Regents to approve that. So they were operating, and this $617,000 was going to pay a debt. That debt went away. So we're putting the 617 back out there. I guess the question is, and it would seem that the board would want to know what we are going to get now for that. Not we are going to get, what the student population at Savannah State is going to get that. And if the answer to that is the Regents are aware that's additional money and they're going to make sure that it's programmed properly, I understand the constitutional separation, but just putting it out there when there's not a loan to pay without a mission is just pennies I chase.
So we will get back to you. I don't want to speak on behalf of the institution, but there's a couple of things that I do know. There's some needs currently in housing that need to be addressed. And so it could address those. It could address, again, back to the instruction mission, but I will get back with the institution and get some more clarification on how they plan.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Real quick, and again, not to belabor, I do follow Chairman Martin's logic. So, were they operating on, based on a formula? This was coming out of a formula and they were operating, I guess at a deficit or what? But I do see, it's almost from a cash flow perspective based on historical funding of the college. It's like an infusion, if you will, of funding of cash for what program. So in other words, that is a good question. If you will, I would appreciate, we can get back with a committee on definitely where those funds are going to be used.
Chairman, I understand the constitutional separation. I'm perfectly fine. I just wanted to bring up the fact that we're sending that money down there. I hope the Regents and the administration at Savannah State is looking for it and delivering something extra for the students.
Well, and I guess that begs the question, was there a formula that was allocated in money to Savannah State? And then all of a sudden we took some of that money back out to pay for these bonds. And so it's sort of, they were still getting allocated maybe the money based on a formula.
Correct.
and then they, we pull that back to pay for a specific debt. But, again, let's get some information on that. And I think that would help clarify any questions that we have. Representative Dukes, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like you want to thank Steve for the service that he's provided for the state. I think I met him over 25 years ago when he had hair.
That's true. Thank you.
But my question is, I don't know, it wasn't as for Tracy or Steve. This is my first year in the committee in probably about 10 or 15 years. But I'm looking at the amount of money that we have here for the teacher retirement system for retirement. There is an increase in that amount. Is that the money that we need in order to make sure that the system remains solvent, or what generated the increase? That's what the bill is for.
So yeah, the TRS basically has an actuary that helps determine the solvency of the program. And based on that, each year, there's a recommendation made for what that rate needs to be, what needs to be assessed against the employee salary to put into the TRS program. So the rate increase, I can't remember, 19.06, I think, to 19.8, that change, we then seek funding from the General Assembly to support that payment to TRS.
But the rate is set by TRS.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Representative Dukes, you'll see this throughout not only this budget, but in other, it, again, is actuarial set, and it's the obligation of the employer, basically the state, that is so that is our portion from the state. Again, I think you said it best, to make sure that we're contributing to the teachers' retirement fund to keep it, well funded, and that's our portion of it. So you were correct in your original assumption. Any other questions? I don't know if we've got any from online. So a couple of other questions I want to maybe bring up. And I want to thank the partnership with the Board of Regents and Chancellor, certainly from the perspective of USG. But one of the things we've done in the past, and I did not see it in the governor's recommendation, but was the medical college. We our great need as the state increases in population, healthcare at the top of that list, and we certainly need more doctors, to provide that healthcare. So we had been on, I think, a 3-year phase-in of trying to increase the medical education credit rate for these medical students. And I know we had gotten through year 1. Last year we had the Rocky Road, but I didn't see it in here. And I don't know, what was going on. I know we have a great concern that we need to make sure we've got enough physicians out there to provide the health care that our citizens need. But any comment on that from your perspective?
Yes.
Program?
Yes, that item, I guess we first requested 3 years ago. It was to adjust the component in the formula that had to do with salaries at MCG. They had fallen behind, if I recall, 18%, I think. And so to your point, we asked for a 3-year phase in. I think it was $7 million or something a year to help adjust just that component in the formula to address that shortfall of funding at MCG. We did receive it last year, a year before last, not last year, and it wasn't recommended this year, but I do think it does keep MCG on track to be competitive from the standpoint of being able to attract and keep good faculty, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Chancellor. I think that may be something that our committee may want to look at as we move forward with the budget. But I appreciate that, and I know that's been a concern in our program to make sure that we're producing the physicians, Georgia physicians, that we need to take care of our Georgia citizens.
Right. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions from the committee? Chairman Martin.
I just wanted to add my thanks, Dr. Wrigley. Thanks for your service to Georgia over the years. we agree on many things, and when we don't agree, we found a good way to talk about it and get to a better place, I think, for Georgians. You've been a real asset to me personally in my time down here, from the several positions you've held for the state, and even before I was here. The state's a better place for the work you've done, and we wish you the best wherever your trails lead. I hope they lead back to Athens with 100,000 or so of your favorite folks some this fall. So
Same here.
you will be missed, and I thank you very much for what you've done for the state and the university system in your latest position.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. I appreciate that. I appreciate our friendship for many years. Thank you.
I have a feeling I know what he's going to be doing in fall, ball games and somewhere outdoor in the great outdoors. So I'm envious.
Charlotte is 297 days away. Look out, Clemson.
All right. Again,
Thank you very
Chancellor
much.
Steve, our friend, thank you. Thank you for your service to this state.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I'll close with this. I appreciate the service of each one of you. I really have respect for what you do and your willingness to be a part of the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Our next, we'll get back on track with our agenda item. Our next item will be to hear from Georgia Student Finance Commission and Commissioner Lynn Riley, a familiar face to all of us, a former member who I proudly, and I think a lot of us served with, and Commissioner, we appreciate you, and we look forward to update on the Georgia Student Finance Commission.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and members of the committee, for me to be here today to give an update on the Georgia Student Finance Commission and our fiscal 2022 budget. A brief overview of the agency for new members of the committee. The agency was established in 1965 as the State Scholarship Commission, and we are responsible for administering more than 20 state and lottery-funded scholarship, grant, and loan programs. And our singular mission is to promote and increase access to education beyond high school for our Georgia students. Of course, two primary goals in doing that is to administer over $1 billion worth of funds every year, and to make sure that we increase awareness of our students and families that we have financial aid opportunities for them. Our fiscal year 2020 budget expended over $940 million for the benefit of students. The predominant amount of that, $780 million, was for HOPE programs. We also provided tuition equalization grants, student access loans, $98 million in dual enrollment funds, and we also provided scholarships and grants for military programs and other programs. This slide is very impactful to me as joining the agency this year. In the life of the program from fiscal year 94 to fiscal year 2020, over $12 billion has been utilized in the HOPE program for the benefit of Georgia students, and over 1.9 million students have received this benefit. We're closing in on 2 million, and I hope that we can report to the committee sometime later this year or in the early fiscal 2022 that we've exceeded that threshold as well. Our budget for fiscal year 2022, similar to what the Chancellor mentioned, our first adjustment for fiscal 2022 is an increase in our TRS rate for the 6 employees at Student Finance that are participants in TRS. Our other increases, for a total of $17.63 million, are to increase the projected need in the lottery programs that we serve. HOPE Grant is projected to need an additional $7.259 million in dollars. Our private HOPE Scholarship Program, $444,000. Our HOPE Scholarship Private for the Zell Miller Scholarship of $166,000. For HOPE Scholarship Public Schools, $2.3 million. And HOPE Scholarship Public Schools for the Zell Miller Scholars, $5.5 million. These are increases over the 21 budget as the governor's budget has recommended. In summary, lottery funds, an increase of $7.63 million to adjust for the TRS rate increase and to increase HOPE funds based on our projected need in fiscal year 2022. Our attached agency, the Non-Public Post-Secondary Education Commission, has a small reduction in their budget. They're an attached agency to us. Their reduction is cost savings that they're incurring by modifying the way they operate. This next slide, I won't go into deep detail. This is merely for the committee's reference to see the movement of funds for over the years from FY20 through 21 and into 2022. If you look at total funds, it was just over $1 billion in FY20. The General Assembly increased that in 2021 to $1.05 billion. Primarily increases were due to need and growth in lottery and HOPE programs. The agency itself took a 10% budget cut in our commission administration. Governor's recommendation for fiscal year 2022 reflects the $15.763 million for student finance and the $15,000 reduction for NPEP. One other item that we wanted to bring to the committee's attention, currently the budget documents include flex language that allows the agency to transfer up to 10% of program budget funds between the HOPE grant, HOPE scholarship private, and HOPE scholarship public funds. But it does not allow us to flex dollars between those programs and HOPE GED. We are asking for that consideration in fiscal 2022, just to ensure that we, if the need arises, are able to pay all invoices presented to us by our institutions to ensure that all bills get paid. And Mr. Chairman, I can stop there and take questions about the FY22 budget, or I could move on to give you a brief update on the dual enrollment program.
Won't you just continue with the presentation and we'll accumulate those questions and go back with
Certainly.
the questions at one time.
Certainly, thank you for that. As the committee is aware that in 2018, the Department of Audits issued a special examination on the dual enrollment program. And in 2019 and 2020, the General Assembly deliberated on House Bill 444 that made some significant changes to the dual enrollment program. These changes went into effect after the General Assembly adjourned last June, and the major provisions of the bill provided for changes in the approved courses that are funded by dual enrollment funds. It changed the eligibility by grade level for participants, and it also implemented a cap per student utilization of dual enrollment funds. We're pleased to note that in 2020, the Department of Audits and Accounts issued a follow-up review to their 2018 report, and their indications were that the General Assembly and the agency fully addressed the recommendations that they identified in 2018 due to the implementation of House Bill 444. At the agency, some enhancements that we made in experience for our students were to, one, provide interaction digitally, primarily due to the pandemic, but also we are continuing to utilize our digital services and our websites to provide interactive service for our student participants in dual enrollment. We published a new dashboard on our website so that students can track their application status and also their eligibility for participation in the program. We have an online course directory so our students can know which courses that they might be interested in using or taking, whether they are covered by dual enrollment funds. We've eliminated paper applications and gone digital so that we can provide full service for all of our students from wherever they may be. And we have hosted a number of webinars on our platforms to ensure that our students are fully aware of exactly what we provide to them. I'll go through a few pie charts in the next few slides, and these are illustrative of the changes that have been made in the program from FY20 to FY2021. In FY 2020, you can see the breakdown of the courses that were utilized and offered to students who enrolled in the program. And as you can see, primarily core courses were utilized by our students, but the career, technical, and agricultural education programs were the second greatest cohort. And in FY 2020, other courses were allowed. Now, in contrast, when you look at FY 2021, the other courses were eliminated by House Bill 444, and now the enrollment is purely within core course or CTAE courses. In FY 2020, this slide shows a breakdown of the courses by sector, and you can see the deviation in the core courses between USG, TCSG, and the private institutions. And as you can see by these three pie charts, that there was a component of other courses in FY 2020. As when I advance to the next slide, you will see that those other courses have been eliminated by House Bill 444, and in FY 2021, the enrollment was limited to core and CTAE course selections. Dual enrollment by grade level also changed based on House Bill 444. In FY 2020, we had all high school grade levels participating, 9, 10, 11, and 12. As we can see, the predominant enrollment was focused at the senior or 12th grade level. But by sector, you can see that there's a bit of a difference in each of the grade levels in their utilization of dual enrollment in FY 2020. In contrast, for FY 2021, you'll see the elimination of the 9th grade participation paid by state dollars in the dual enrollment program. And as you can see, USG has a predominantly the 12th grade participation. TCSG, a majority, the private institutions similarly, but as you can see, the 9th grade has been eliminated from that funding. This slide reflects the growth in the dual enrollment program since 2014, when it was called Excel. Then in 2016 and 2017 was titled the Move On When Ready program. And now in 2018 and forward is dual enrollment. The last two columns to the right, the purple shaded area are the amounts that are appropriated or considered for in the 2021 budget and 2022 budget. We added those increments above the purple shaded area to indicate the adjustments that have occurred. Yellow due to House Bill 444, which reduced the number of students that could participate based on grade level and by courses that they were pursuing. And the enrollment, the red section of that bar chart is the reduction in enrollment. So you can see from 2019, our high of 104.6 million that was utilized in state dollars for the dual enrollment program. For AY 2021, we are looking at 82.8 million in the budget that the governor has just signed. And in FY 2022, 89.8 million as reflected in the budget that's before you. Again, this bar chart just reflects the change in students for 2021 and 2022 due to House Bill 444 as reflected in the yellow shading area. That is what will not be utilized. And similarly, the enrollment has reduced by the red blocks so that we project 48,691 students to utilize dual enrollment in FY 2021 and 57,713 students in FY 2022. And with that, Mr. Chairman, again, to remind the members of the committee of our mission, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions from members? Representative Dukes, you have a question?
Now, just a request. we certainly appreciate that presentation. It was very enlightening to me. And my request is there any way that you could email that to us such that we can be able to have an opportunity to kind of just really delve into it?
Absolutely. And thank you for that question, Representative Dukes. We will make sure that you have a copy of it. And of course, my team and I are available to you and all members of the committee at any time to bring any more content to any of the areas that we oversee.
They have been quite helpful up to this point.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner, there were one or two, I guess, comment / questions, but one, I know when we were dealing with dual enrollment, part of it was to, the original intent of dual enrollment was to make sure that we had a pathway and we could help these students get through their higher education experience and, complete high school. I know we had some talk about, what were the outcomes? And I know that your predecessor and I know your assistant commissioner over there, we had talked about this. Once we started getting this data, how are we doing in the output? In other words, are we accomplishing that mission, or are we doing what we need to do to make sure that the numbers are there, these students are moving through quickly, they're not taking courses that they end up not needing towards graduation at the higher level. Do y'all remember, Commissioner, I may be hitting you sort of blind, but that may be a conversation we can just follow up with as we built out the system, or if you remember that, and the data that we could start measuring this and seeing the outcome and making sure that dual enrollment was meeting its objective. So I tell you what, maybe offline, we could just follow back up with that question.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. And as you're aware, the House Bill 444 required the Student Finance Commission to prepare an annual report on activities based on the changes that were incorporated in House Bill 444. And since that began on July 1st of this current fiscal year, our second publication of that document, I think, will provide some trends that will be responsive to that request.
Okay. Thank you. And the other thing is just looking at the HOPE grant, and make sure I'm back in, but the HOPE grant is dealing back with our technical colleges and the high growth areas. How do we, we've got a projection here. I guess, what are those projections based on in just the last 2 years? And I think there was a situation where we'd come up with one and we increased that projection a little bit. So is there any background or data that you can give us there? And again, these high growth areas, I know that's our intention of making sure that we're, incentivizing, our students to go out and get involved in these careers where there's high demand, which I think is a great thing. But how has that program changed and from the last couple of years? Are we meeting needs? Are those demands changing as we go forward? How is that program working?
Well, I'm going to ask Brian Lipton, our budget director, to speak a little bit more deeply into that. But yes, we are paying quite close attention to the courses that are being utilized by the HOPE grant. And in concert with our partners, Commissioner Dozer and his team at TCSG, we're making sure that we align what we are seeing for utilization in the HOPE Career Grant and the HOPE Grant to make sure that we ask and receive from the General Assembly the appropriate dollars to meet that demand. But if you wouldn't mind,
absolutely.
Brian, if you want to provide a little depth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation of the increase of $7.3 million is going to be for the HOPE Career Grant, which is for the high demand career areas. And that's going to be based on an increase of 24% in the award growth, which is the actual award growth we saw last year in FY20 compared to 19. The year before, the growth was at 30%. So this is based on a continuation of those trends.
Okay. But you are seeing, and I guess that's my question, because we at both, at every level, sort of seeing at best a decline in enrollment. or maybe a decline in the growth of enrollment, if not down. So I'm just trying to figure, that out as far as what we're seeing in numbers and our projection going forward. Is that based on real numbers, or is that just based on, what we did last year, or what?
Yes, sir. Year to date, we are projecting another increase. Based on the year-to-date information that we have on the Hope Career Grant, we will exceed last year's amounts.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, maybe, and again, we can get some more data as we look into this, as far as these projections and the students there and the enrollment that we're seeing in those high demand areas.
Yes, sir.
Quite frankly, I love the program. I think it's one of the best things that Georgia has done, as we go to meet the needs of, our state's business partners, our businesses out there, as they look for the needs in these high demand areas that we can partner. And I really appreciate the program, and just want to make sure we're continuing to support it and do it in the right way, and allocate the funds, in the way that we can support Georgia businesses.
Yes, sir. We'd be happy to work with you and provide any data you need on that.
Thank you. Representative Dukes, you got a question?
Yeah, as I said, I don't understand the high demand growth, but maybe you can tell me later. I don't want to hold up everybody else's time, because it seems like you already know. You guys, I don't understand the high demand growth. Hope everybody else on the committee does. I just didn't want you all to get away, because I want you to just enlighten me onto it, and from that
Well,
perspective.
and thank you, Representative Dukes, and we will be happy to provide additional information on those high demand areas that the Hope Career Grant funds. But I do believe, and I'm not trying to put him on the spot, but Commissioner Dozier may speak to that as well in the enrollment patterns. We fund against what the students that attend the technical colleges enroll in. We have seen those trends increase, as Brian mentioned, 30% up last year, and 24%, was that? 24 last year, 30% growth the year before. So it's clear that there is a desire for students to participate in those career path programs.
Sounds like a good idea, really.
I believe it's evident that it is successful in its enrollment, and I think that we can probably look at trends going forward that we'll see those careers grow in our state that will benefit our economy.
Thank you, Representative. All right. Any other questions that we may have for Commissioner Riley? Thank you, Commissioner, and
Thank you, sir.
and thank you all for being here. And again, we may follow back up with some conversation and get some numbers. We will make sure we're supporting y'all in the right way.
We look forward to it, and we thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is our non-public post-secondary education commission. Kirk Shook, or how you doing?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank y'all for taking time to look at our budget here, FY22. And so just before I get into each of our line items here on the tracking sheet, I just wanted to mention for folks that may be new to the committee what Impact does. As President Riley mentioned, we are administratively attached to the Georgia Student Finance Commission, but our agency regulates all the private colleges in the state. For the colleges that we regulate, there's about 150,000 students, Georgia students, that attend those colleges, and they spend about $1 billion in tuition. So it has quite the economic impact here in the state. Our agency also houses the Georgia SARA program. That is the program that oversees all the online education, and whether that's TCSG with Commissioner Dozier, USG schools, or the private schools, we give approval, and those schools can then be able to offer online programming to students all across the nation. So we have several things our agency does, but I'll direct your attention to the tracking sheet here. Line item 44.17.1 is our first item. Same thing that other budgets that you've seen. TRS for one employee, that's myself, an increase there. Line item 44.17.2. This is just a information piece. This is speaks to our Georgia Sarah program, and that it is funded through the fees that are paid by technical college, private colleges, and the university system colleges that pay into that program. So it's a self-sustaining, self-funding program, and the budget's about $115,000 a year through those funds. And so that's just to be transparent, to show those other funds that we use in our agency to fund one of the programs. And then the final line item is 44.17.3. We are, because our work allows for it, we've noticed that we've been successful in remote work during the time of the pandemic. And so we are moving to a permanent remote work model for most employees of the agency. So we're going to reduce the footprint, the real estate footprint of the agency, and that'll save about almost $16,000 a year going forward to do that. And so that's for a program net change of $15,210. So I'll open the floor to any questions.
All right. Any members of the committee, any questions? Online. We're good. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Director. We appreciate what you're doing. And again, there are a lot of private colleges out there, and very important to Georgia, but also very important to make sure that these private colleges are serving our citizens correctly in a great way. And they are, a lot of them are, but we appreciate what you do and how you and your agency deal with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, and next on the agenda is Commissioner Greg Dozier with the Technical College System of Georgia. How are you doing, Commissioner?
I was a little bit concerned there. I saw Director Shook coming at me and it made me hesitate. He's a little bigger than me. Mr. Chairman, would you like for me to start?
Yeah, take
Okay.
off. The mic is yours.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and committee. It's always an honor to come and speak on behalf of our 22 colleges and the 320,000 individuals that are able to bless us with their presence at our colleges. One of the things I did kind of want before I jump into it, just kind of speak a little bit more on the high career demand fields. Just to expand on what was said, we're very blessed at the state, that the General Assembly and the governor saw fit to find 17 career fields that the workforce was in desperate need to actually fit the Hope Career Grant to allow the coverage of free tuition. And so that's one of the blessings. We are blessed that enrollment has continued to grow in that area. We still have a hole in those areas. So we're still trying to grow those areas, I think, to your point, Mr. Chairman, some of our conversations. But on top of that growth that you heard Lynn talk about, as far as 30-something% and 20-something percent, when you look at the total high career demand field, because not everybody gets the Hope Career Grant, about 67% of our graduates last year were in one of those areas. So it's very rewarding to see that our students and our colleges are really focused on that workforce need across the state. And jumping into the budget, we're in section 46 of the budget. We only really have 2 items here, but they're spread throughout the system. And just like the other agencies that presented, I'll start with section 46, 46.1.1, and that's to reflect that increase for TRS, the 19.06 to the 19.81 on that portion that the state pays for our individuals for their retirement fund. As you look at it in the adult education program, that's $31,712. But when you add up each program for the entire budget for TCSG, that makes up $764,027. There's a second item under the adult education, and that is 46.1.2, and that's to reflect a change in the program purpose with just a simple yes in there. What that does is in that purpose statement in the bill, it mentions GED specifically. As many of you are aware, and some of the things that we're very proud of in our adult education program is that we've added additional ways for someone to get a high school equivalency. So in that program name, it changes it from GED to high school equivalency to reflect both the GED, the HiSET testing, and our Career Plus program. So that's what that simple yes does. Item 46.2.1 is the TRS. Item 46.3.1 is the TRS increase, and 46.5.1 and 46.6.1 are all the TRS increase that I mentioned earlier. The last two items in our budget is 46.6.2 and 46.6.3. Just as USG mentioned, this is related to our formula increase for an enrollment growth. 46.6.2 represents last fiscal year's increase, which was about 32,313 credit hours, or 1.6% increase for 6.084 million. And item 46.6.3 represented last fiscal year's, which was funded and supported in the amended budget. And by the way, thank you. We appreciate that very much, but it's moving it forward into the 2022 budget, representing that 1.5% increase in an additional 29,760 credit hours in the amount of 3.5 million. Together, both of those, as far as the formula goes, was $9,548,363. Those are the items in our budget, Mr. Chairman, but we also have some bond projects. Would you like for me to cover those as well today? That's in section 50.
I don't know if we've got that. I tell you what, we don't have that in front of us, so we'll before we go without the documentation in front of us, we'll hold off.
Okay, absolutely. I'll obviously be happy to answer any of those questions for you at the right time.
All right.
Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you or the committee may have today.
All right. Members of the committee, any questions? Representative Dukes.
The new kid.
I don't think you knew Representative Dukes.
How do we kids go about getting into these career programs, and what is the path?
Great question. To give you just a quick overview, I mentioned 320,000 students. The majority of those students are in what you typically think of in TCSG, and that's our technical training skills area. About 140,000 of those, 320 are in there. And of that 320,000, 35,000 or so make up the dual enrollment students that you just heard about from Lynn Riley. About 108,000 are in your traditional technical training. Of that 108,000, when they come and register, whether it's through a dual enrollment transfer, straight out of high school, walk in off the street, the first thing you're going to do is encounter a counselor in our system. When you meet that individual, they're going to help map which programs you're going to focus on and which jobs availability are in your service region. So if you're coming to your local college, I'll use mine just so I don't offend anybody. The one that I live in is Georgia Piedmont. If you come into Georgia Piedmont, they're going to look at those industries around. Every single program we have has an industry advisory committee to make sure the programs we're teaching meet the requirements of those that are hiring. And when we sit down and talk to that individual, about 48% of our students are under some type of financial aid. But we're going to not only talk about the job opportunity, the earnings capability, but also how do you pay for it? And so when you combine all those, these high career demand fields are the ones that always rise to the top because the jobs are open, they're high wage earning jobs for the most part, and there's a financial way to cover it that you guys have provided. So our counselors are doing a great job out there, and that's why you're seeing that increase. And we're also working with our local K-12 systems to make sure as students are coming through K-12, they know those opportunities. So we've been very blessed. Our system, just to tell you, gives a host of different opportunities. We give a certificate we give a diploma, and we give a degree. So you can work on anything as far as a entry-level certificate in welding. You can work on advanced welding and get stackable credentials and get a degree, or you can work all the way up to an applied science associate degree, 2-year degree that's transferable into USG. We have 28 courses that USG has approved, so all those core classes are transferable between systems. And as you work your way through that, we're going to help you navigate and find the best mix for you financially, but that's how you find your way to it. Yes, sir.
Chairman Chokus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. Thank you very much. This is more of a comment than a question, and I want to compliment your organization and present leadership and past leadership. I'm going to put a shout out to a former president of South Georgia Tech, Sparky Reeves. With the dual enrollment and the large increases in dual enrollment and the trying to bring the average age down of the technical college student, Sparky suggested to our local Board of Education, who at the time was looking to build a new high school. And they are currently building a high school, should be finished within a year, $50 million project directly across the street from South Georgia Tech. And that was to credit Sparky with his vision of marrying those two institutions, you might say.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you and continue the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Sparky was a great one. I wish I had really got to know him. I unfortunately did not, but John's followed in his footsteps and doing a great job down there. And they're excited. When I was able to visit down there, they're excited about that partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? One of the things, and we may want to get some data, but we keep hearing this not only from USG, we talk about enrollment. And certainly with some of the trends in Georgia declining, I mean, we're seeing the elementary, K through 12. But as we see these declines, I want to sort of keep an eye on this as we prepare for the future. In light of maybe either declining enrollment or a declining growth in enrollment, at some point we'll reach that crossing point. But overall, are you seeing a decline in enrollment, but yet the funding formula is going up? So I'm trying to make sure that we understand what's behind that, and any quick words, and then maybe you can follow up with some data that we could.
Great question, and connecting the dots is exactly. We do have a declining enrollment this year during this COVID pandemic timeframe. And next year, when we're standing before you, that's going to be the issue. Fortunately, the prior 2 years, and even before that, we've been having growth of enrollment year after year. And that's what this formula increase covers, is that growth that we have experienced. Yes, sir.
So what do we, I mean, obviously, there's always things to do with money, and there's a 2-year lag of the formula, but from a perspective of, if you've got declining numbers now, the current cost now you're getting a funding formula that's 2 years ago we reflected on a higher enrollment number. What we got ideas of where we're using that funds? Or
Absolutely, I can't give you the specifics today, but you're exactly right. First of all, we hope that we don't see declining enrollment past this pandemic period. There's signs that it will rebound, and it'll rebound pretty strong because the jobs in the areas that need the workforce or where we're actually participating. So I can't see it in the crystal ball, but my belief is that once we get the vaccination out there and people have comfort, you're going to see our enrollment numbers jump right back. The good news is although we're seeing right at a 9% decline in enrollment, most of that's in the dual enrollment area. So when you look at actual individuals coming after high school, post high school, and coming in to work in the traditional technical education side, last fall, we experienced a 4.5% decline, and we had 6 colleges that actually saw an increase. And so I believe as our communities get more comfortable through this pandemic, Using the extreme, Lanier had an 11% increase. That's the extreme. But I believe when you see other areas start rebounding, you're going to start seeing that increase as well. The funding, it gives us the chance to be nimble. That's the one thing that's just such a blessing that I found a year ago when I came to corrections. I left corrections. When I came to TCSG, was how quickly TCSG is able to maneuver, whether it was the pandemic, whether it's a new industry coming into your areas that the constituents need specialized training in, and we actually curtail that training to match not only the degree requirements, but to match that needs of that specific industry. We don't get funding for those type projects. And the formula funding allows us to be able to have the nimbleness to serve the community and the student and actually make that program work and meet those needs of the community. But we can give you more information on that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner, I think, is it Dean Spirey, is that you? All right, go ahead, Dean.
How you doing, Commissioner? It's good to see you. On the Atlanta Metropolitan College, is that, do you all get it, the requests come through to you all to them? I mean, Atlanta Technical College.
Okay, I was about to say Atlanta
Yeah, you're not-
Metropolitan's right next door, but that's not us.
My
Okay.
mind is on the University System of Georgia, Chairman Knight. But the Center for Transportation and Logistics at Atlanta,
Yes.
I visit them and they were, talking about that transportation issue over there and trying to do a curriculum and a support in that area. Are you familiar with that request?
Yes, sir, I am.
Was that made through the regular budgetary process? Or?
Yes, sir, it was. It was included in our budget submission through OPB.
Yeah.
As you're aware, it is not included in the recommendation at this point. To give everybody an overview, I know the chairman knows this, but all 22 of our colleges have a top priority project for their college. All of those projects would go before the Technical College Systems State Board. They review those obviously with our presentation. Those top 22 projects are then approved by the state board. So should they be funded through the process, it has full support. That is a project that has gone through that process and it has been submitted through the budget process.
Last time I was over there, they were dedicating the building to Hank Aaron.
Yes,
you
sir.
recall that. And the president mentioned that to me at that time. So
Yeah.
I'd like to follow up with you on that if I could.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Doctor, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, what an honor losing the great Hank Aaron. That was probably for a young kid growing up loving baseball. That day was special just for me. I had not ever had the chance to meet him, and boy, what a special time! But also a special time to see truly those that give back. We don't talk enough about that, you and I have, but the way individuals give back to our technical college system, including Mr. Aaron. But there's so many industries that pump back into our system and give back. Thank you for giving me that moment.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I agree with you. Our technical colleges are born out of our community and they're intertwined with our community. So they're important not only to the state, but they're so important locally too. So any other questions for Commissioner? If not, I think we've had a good discussion today and a good hearing, and we will respond back with the committee as far as a next meeting date. And yes, sir, we'll make sure we will. And with that, the Higher Education Appropriations Committee is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.